Imagine this. You're in a relationship or maybe just starting to see someone and things seem to be going well. But then, something shifts. He doesn't text as often. He takes longer to respond. The attention that once felt effortless now seems distant. You wonder, what changed? Why isn't he as engaged as before? And most importantly, how do I make him miss me more? If you've ever found yourself in this situation, you're not alone. And today you're about to discover the psychological triggers that make a man crave your presence, long for your attention, and think about you constantly, even when you're not around. The last one I'll reveal is the most powerful of all, and once you understand it, everything will change. But before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed to Female Red Pill, leave a like, and comment below. Your support helps bring more eye-opening insights like this. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because what I'm about to tell you could completely transform the way you handle relationships. Now, let's get into it. One of the biggest mistakes women make when they want a man to miss them is giving too much, too soon. Society tells us that love is about constant availability, about always being there when he needs you. But the truth? That mindset kills attraction. Men don't long for what they already have in excess. Think about it. When was the last time you deeply craved something that was always available? Scarcity creates value. Dr. Robert Greene, in The Art of Seduction, explains how distance and unpredictability make someone more desirable. If you're too available, you remove the mystery. He describes how seducers throughout history have mastered the art of controlled absence, being there just enough to keep the other person engaged, but not so much that their presence becomes ordinary. So here's the first step. Pull back strategically. I'm not saying you should play childish games or pretend to be busy when you're not, but you do need to shift the dynamic. Instead of initiating conversations all the time, let him come to you. Instead of clearing your schedule for him, keep your life full and interesting. When he realizes that your world doesn't revolve around him, something clicks in his mind. She's different. This taps into a psychological concept called reward uncertainty, which is extensively discussed in the Red Pill Handbook. When rewards are predictable, they lose their emotional impact. But when there's an element of unpredictability, the brain becomes addicted to seeking that reward. This is why casinos are so addictive. They don't give you a win every time, but just enough to keep you coming back for more. The same principle applies to relationships. If he always knows when you'll text, when you'll be available, and how you'll respond, there's no excitement. But if he's unsure, if sometimes you respond instantly and other times you take your time, his brain starts working overtime. He wonders what you're doing, why you're not responding, and suddenly you're on his mind more than ever. Now let's talk about emotional imprinting. This is something many women overlook. You don't just want him to miss your presence. You want him to feel something when he thinks about you. Most women focus on what they do in a relationship, but the real secret is in how they make a man feel. Neuroscientists have proven that emotions are the strongest triggers for memory and attachment. If your presence is associated with excitement, adventure, and positive emotions, his brain will crave that feeling when you're not around. Think about it. When you look back on your most intense relationships, the ones that still linger in your mind, it's not because of routine conversations or predictable moments. It's because those people made you feel something unique. If every interaction is the same, small talk, checking in, routine dates, there's nothing to miss. But if you create moments that trigger emotional highs, he will subconsciously crave your presence. This is why The Rational Male by Rollo Tomassi warns against the dangers of predictability. Men don't emotionally invest in what feels routine, they invest in what stimulates them. So if you want him to miss you, you need to be someone whose presence evokes emotions that he can't easily replace. And here's something most women get wrong. Social proof matters. If a man perceives you as high value, he'll automatically miss you more when you're not around. Why? Because he knows you're in demand. Women often think they need to convince a man to like them, but the reality is that men are wired to value what others value. If he sees that other people respect you, admire you, and enjoy your company, he won't take you for granted. Studies on preselection show that when a man perceives a woman as desirable to others, his attraction to her increases. This is why confident women who have a full life and social circle naturally attract more attention. They don't have to beg for it. It comes to them effortlessly. And that's the energy you need to embody. Now you might be wondering, What is the most powerful strategy of all? The one that ensures he not only misses you but becomes emotionally hooked? That's exactly what we're about to uncover next. Now, let's talk about the most powerful force in human psychology, loss aversion. If you truly want him to miss you, you need to understand this principle. Psychological studies have proven that people are far more motivated to avoid loss than to gain something new. This means that once a man feels like he's losing you, his brain will shift into overdrive to get you back. He will start to crave you, to think about you constantly, and to realize your value in a way he never did before. But here's the key. You can't fake it. If you're just pretending to be distant while secretly hoping he chases you, he will sense it. Men are instinctively attuned to detecting desperation, and the moment he feels like you're pulling away just to manipulate him, the effect is lost. Instead, you need to actually cultivate a mindset of abundance. Instead of obsessing over how to make him miss you, focus on building a life that is so fulfilling, so rich and so exciting, that he has no choice but to notice your absence. This is where self-investment becomes your most powerful tool. The moment a man realizes that you are genuinely happy, growing and thriving with or without him, his perception of you changes. This ties back to what the rational male describes as the difference between real and perceived abundance. Women who act like they have options but secretly cling to one man don't create real attraction. But women who actually have options, whether that means career ambitions, personal passions, or a strong social life, become magnetic. And this is where most women go wrong. They think making a man miss them is about doing less, texting less, calling less, playing hard to get. But the truth is, it's about being more interesting, more confident, more unpredictable. Let's take a moment to reflect. What are the qualities of a woman that men tend to reminisce about, even years after a relationship has ended? It's rarely the woman who was always there, always waiting, always agreeable. It's the woman who challenged him, who had her own path, who was a source of mystery and excitement. This brings us to a crucial concept in red pill psychology: contrast theory. People appreciate things more when they experience contrast. If every interaction with you feels the same, there's nothing for his brain to latch onto. But if you create moments of contrast, intense presence followed by moments of absence, deep conversations followed by playful teasing, he will become addicted to the experience of you. Think about it like this. A vacation feels special not because travel itself is magical, but because it contrasts with the routine of everyday life. If you were on vacation all the time, it would lose its thrill. The same happens in relationships. When you make every moment too easy, too predictable, too accessible, you rob it of its impact. So, how do you apply this to make him feel your absence more? You need to create high points, moments so memorable, so emotionally charged, that when you step away, he feels the void. Here's how you do it. First, when you're with him, be fully present. In today's world, everyone is half distracted, checking their phones, thinking about the next thing. But if you give someone your full, undivided attention, they feel it on a deep level. This means making eye contact, truly listening, and creating shared experiences that are meaningful. Then, once you've created these strong emotional highs, you step back, not in a cold way, but in a way that signals you have a life beyond him. When you do this, his mind will naturally start replaying those moments, making him crave your presence again. Now let's discuss an advanced concept, the psychological imprint. This is something that Manson talks about in Models, and it's one of the most powerful tools a woman can use in relationships. The idea is this: if you want a man to truly miss you, you need to imprint yourself into his emotions. The human brain remembers emotions more than facts. He might forget what you said, but he won't forget how you made him feel. So, your goal is to create peak emotional moments. Laughter, passion, intrigue, even a little bit of challenge. For example, if every conversation is just about daily routines, there's nothing for his brain to latch onto. But if you share stories that make him think, challenge his perspectives, or introduce new experiences into his life, you become unforgettable. Let's take this even deeper. Imagine two different women. One is always available, always eager to please, always predictable. She's kind, but she never challenges him, never introduces new experiences into his life, never surprises him. The other woman is different. She has depth. She introduces him to new music, new ideas, new perspectives. She's warm, but also a little mysterious. She doesn't always agree with him, but when she debates him, it's in a way that excites and stimulates him. Which one do you think he will miss more? Now, here's a secret that few people talk about. Men don't just miss presence, they miss energy shifts. If every interaction feels the same, there's no emotional pull. But if you introduce waves of excitement, curiosity, intensity, and then distance, his brain will be unable to let go of you. This is why relationships based purely on comfort tend to fade over time, while relationships with emotional variety stay compelling. Comfort alone doesn't make people stay. Investment does. And nothing makes a man invest more than a sense of potential loss. If he feels like he could lose you, if he sees that you have a full life, that others admire you, that you are moving forward regardless of him, his mind will start working overtime to pull you back in. Now, we've covered a lot so far, but there's one last piece that ties everything together, and it's the ultimate psychological key to making a man miss you. And that's exactly what we're about to uncover next. Now, we've talked about distance, contrast, and the psychology of loss. But what truly cements your presence in a man's mind, what makes him miss you not just for days but for weeks, months, or even years, is the imprint of emotional depth. Let's go even deeper. Most people assume that missing someone is simply about absence, about time apart. But absence alone is not enough. A man won't miss just any woman. He misses the woman who gave him an experience he can't easily replicate. This is why the women men remember the most are not necessarily the most beautiful, the most successful, or even the ones who treated them the best. They are the women who shape their perception of reality. Think about this. Have you ever had someone in your life who made you see the world differently? Maybe they introduced you to a new way of thinking, a new philosophy, a new passion. Those people leave a permanent imprint in our minds. When they're gone, we don't just miss them. We miss the version of ourselves that existed when we were with them. This is the key to being unforgettable. If you want him to miss you, you must create experiences with him that he associates with self-growth, excitement, and transformation. Now, how do you do this? One way is through challenge and unpredictability. This is something Rollo Tomassi talks about extensively in The Rational Male. Men are drawn to what they must work for, to what challenges them, and forces them to rise to a higher level. This doesn't mean playing manipulative games, it means being a woman who expects more, demands more, and brings out the best in him. Let's break this down. Most women operate in one of two ways in relationships. The first type is the pleaser. She tries to be easygoing, never questions anything, and avoids conflict at all costs. She believes that by being agreeable and accommodating, she will be more desirable. But in reality, this makes her forgettable. There is no friction, no push and pull, no sense of challenge. The second type is the high-value woman. She has opinions, standards, and a life beyond the man she's interested in. She doesn't bend over backward to be liked. Instead, she focuses on being genuinely interesting. Here's where it gets fascinating. Men instinctively respect and desire what they have to work for. If a man knows that you won't tolerate mediocrity, that you expect depth, ambition, and growth, he will subconsciously crave your validation. Why? Because it means something. And this is a critical point. A man does not value what comes too easily. The women who are most unforgettable are the ones who set the highest standards, not in an arrogant way, but in a way that signals, I am someone of value, and if you want to be part of my life, you need to show up as your best self. This is where selective availability plays a role. When you are always available, always ready to accommodate, a man subconsciously assumes that your attention is easy to get. But when you have a life that is full and meaningful on its own, when your time is truly valuable, he begins to see you differently. And this is where the final piece of the puzzle comes in, the emotional roller coaster effect. Studies in psychology have proven that people become more deeply attached to experiences that involve a range of emotions. This is why relationships that are too smooth, too easy, too predictable often fizzle out. They lack contrast. But if a relationship has moments of intensity, excitement, challenge, depth, and even occasional uncertainty, it creates an emotional high, and that high is what makes a person unforgettable. Here's a practical way to apply this. Instead of always giving him what he expects, introduce elements of mystery and challenge. Maybe one day you're deeply engaged in a passionate conversation, and the next, you're focused on your own projects, unavailable for hours. Maybe you surprise him with something meaningful and then step back, allowing space for him to process. This isn't about manipulation. It's about letting him feel the highs and lows of emotional engagement. Because when he experiences that range with you, his brain links you with excitement, growth, and depth. Now here's something powerful that most women never realize. You do not have to be physically present for a man to feel your impact. Once you've created a deep enough imprint, even when you're not around, you're still in his head. He hears your voice in his mind. He remembers the way you challenged him, the way you made him feel, the way you inspired him. And this is what creates true emotional addiction. Think about it. Have you ever tried to get over someone only to find yourself thinking about them at random moments? That's because they created an emotional anchor in your mind. Certain places, songs, or even phrases remind you of them. If you want a man to miss you, you need to create those anchors in his mind. One way to do this is through shared experiences that are deeply emotional. Instead of just spending time together, do things that trigger strong emotions. Travel somewhere new. Engage in deep philosophical conversations. Explore activities that push both of you outside your comfort zones. When you create these intense moments, even when you're not around, he will feel your presence through those memories. And now, we arrive at the most powerful strategy of all, the final, ultimate key that ensures he won't just miss you, but actively seeks you out, again and again. And that's exactly what we're about to uncover next. Now, everything we've discussed so far has led us to the final and most powerful strategy. The one thing that makes a man not just miss you, but chase you, long for you, and feel like he can't replace you. And that is the fear of permanence. Let me explain. A man may feel your absence, he may think about you from time to time, but what truly makes him act, what pushes him to reach out, to pursue, to invest, is the fear that your absence is not temporary, but permanent. See, most men operate under the assumption that women will always be there in some way. Even if you stop talking for a while, he assumes he can come back whenever he wants. He assumes you are waiting. And this is the biggest mistake women make. They create distance, but they don't create finality. But when a man senses that you are truly moving on, when he starts to believe that you are no longer an option for him, that's when panic sets in. This is a fundamental principle in the rational male. Men respond to competition and scarcity. When he sees that other men are taking an interest in you, when he senses that you are slipping away for good, his entire psychology shifts. Suddenly, you are no longer a choice, you are a loss he can't afford. So how do you apply this? You don't just disappear and hope he misses you. You subtly but powerfully communicate that your world is expanding without him. Here's how. 1. Show, don't tell. You don't need to announce that you're moving on. Simply start living in a way that makes it obvious. Maybe you post a picture doing something exciting. Maybe you subtly mention a new opportunity. Maybe he hears through mutual friends that you've been glowing lately. 2. Be unreachable in a meaningful way. This doesn't mean ignoring him out of spite. It means genuinely being too occupied with your own growth, your own experiences, your own happiness to be readily available. 3. Reframe your role in his life. Instead of being someone he thinks he can always return to, become the woman he wishes he had appreciated more. When you embody this energy, it shifts the power dynamic entirely. And here's the final psychological trigger that makes a man obsessed with getting you back: the question mark effect. This is a technique that many high-value women use intuitively. Instead of giving closure, instead of making things clear, they leave a man with unanswered questions. Did she lose interest? Is she seeing someone else? Did she ever really need me? When a man has certainty, he relaxes. But when there's ambiguity, when his mind is filled with what-ifs, his brain becomes obsessed with solving the puzzle. Think about it. The relationships people struggle to move on from are not the ones that ended neatly, but the ones that ended with uncertainty. So when you subtly communicate that your life is moving forward without him, that you are no longer his, but also don't confirm anything outright, you ignite his primal drive to reclaim you. And that's when he truly begins to miss you. Not just in passing, not just for a moment, but deeply, relentlessly, and urgently. Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final truth. You never truly make a man miss you. What you do is become the kind of woman that a man cannot forget. A woman of depth, mystery, and value. A woman who is both an experience and a challenge. And once you master this, men will never see you the same way again. So, If this resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever unintentionally made a man miss you? Or have you ever experienced the question mark effect yourself? And if you want to continue learning how to navigate relationships with power, confidence, and strategy, make sure to subscribe to Female Red Pill, leave a like, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. And before you go, I've linked 2 must-watch videos on the screen that take this conversation even deeper. Click on them now and I'll see you over there.